Hello and welcome to the section on magic methods. What are magic methods? Magic methods are method that is available in a class which you don't have to define it. Okay, one good example was constructor and destructor. We saw that constructor and destructor are already available for you, and it has a standard naming convention like _construct and _destruct. Okay, you cannot change the names, you cannot change the format, but these methods are predefined and available for any class that you create. Similarly, there are other magic methods like constructor and destructor. That's what we're going to look in this section. Okay, so after completing this section, you will be able to understand what is magic methods. You work with examples on these magic methods: _set, _get, _call, _toString, and _debug info magic methods. They'll work with exercises, resources, and quiz to understand magic methods in detail. Okay, so let's jump into the lecture now. Hello and welcome to the section on understanding what are magic methods. So let's look at what are the magic methods that we have seen so far and what are the new ones. When a new instance has been created in a class, we saw there's a function called construct, _construct, and that's get called. Okay, it's already available for every class. So we have seen this previously. When you write an echo statement and we just create the instance, this method is called. We don't even have to call this method. It is called automatically by the PHP interpreter. Okay, and when a new instance is destroyed, the destruct method is called. Okay, it's again the same format, _destruct, and these are called as magic methods, which is already available in your class and you don't call them. It's automatically been called by the PHP depending on the trigger points. The trigger point, the first one is when the instance is created, and the trigger point for the second one is when your instance has been destroyed, this method is called. Okay, so similarly we have other magic methods, and we have like different categories of magic methods. We have set and get. And the purpose of set and get is invoked when anyone try to get or set a protected or a private properties. Because you cannot access private and protected properties, but when someone try to execute these properties, this _set and get methods are called. So if you define them, then they get executed. If you don't define them, then it will error out. Okay, so we'll do an exercise to understand set and get, how they work and how they are very helpful for your project. And the next one is _call. This is invoked when an undefined method is called. So someone is trying to call a method and that method is not available. You don't want to error out. You want to basically tell that program that this method does not exist, and then you want to give some kind of notification. Okay, this can be done inside this magic method called _call, and this is called when undefined method is executed by the object. Okay, there's another method called _toString. Well, when someone try to print the object, you can take the control back to your method, this toString method, and you can choose to display the format. You can choose how you want to display that. Okay, so that's basically a magic method available, and it is invoked automatically when someone try to do a print operation of the object. Okay, the next one is debug info, and this is invoked when a var_dump method is used to print the object. Similar to toString, this is invoked when you call this method called var_dump to print the object. Okay, this will go into a _debug info method, and this method will be called. So you can define these methods in your program, and then you can choose to take control and then do something about it. If you're not taking control, then it will leave it to the PHP to take action on the program. Okay, so magic methods are basically the default methods available for any class, and it's invoked automatically depending on the trigger. Remember, you don't call these methods. They are called automatically based on the events. Okay, like get and set, when someone try to access a protected or a private property, these methods are called automatically. Same like constructor and destructor, when you create an instance, constructor is called. You're not calling it explicitly, but it's called automatically. Similarly, for each of these events, these methods will be called. So we'll do one example for each of these magic methods to understand how it is being called. So for your continuous reading, you can go ahead and look into the PHP manual. There are some other magic methods. So one that we are discussing here are the very important ones. There are other magic methods. You can go ahead and read about it and see if there any of the magic methods interest you, or you think you want to do an exercise on it. You can just click on those magic methods and you can work through it. So here is an URL that's been given. I'll attach this in the resource section as well. You can go ahead and access this URL, read more about the magic methods. Okay, so let's do an exercise and understand some of the magic methods now. Hello and welcome to the lecture on get and set methods. So let's understand how to work with these magic methods. Okay, so let's do an example and understand this. So I'm going to create one more folder called magic methods. Let's create an example here. We do a student's example, and then we'll try to call that get and set magic methods. Okay, so let's create an ID of the student, and then we create these magic methods. We're not doing getter and setter methods. Don't be confused with getter setter methods with magic get and set. It works something similar. It is getting and setting, but it are magic methods. You don't call them, they get called automatically. That's the difference. Okay, and you only have one magic methods for your class, even though you have multiple properties, but you only have one function. Okay, so we're gonna have two properties, ID and name, and let's define the get and set and get. Okay, this is how you're gonna write it. Double underscore, how you write the constructor, double underscore construct and destruct. Similarly, the magic methods for set and get is double underscore set and get. Okay, and typically you don't write anything, you just open and close the parentheses. Okay, set will basically pass two value to it, name and value. Okay, so don't get confused with this name and this name. This is a property, this is the input parameter of that method. Okay, so let's try to print this name and the value and see what is inside this name and the value. Okay, set method is not found, so this is called. Okay, and then you can actually see what's inside this name and value. Okay, and for get, you again get the name of the variable that you are trying to get, and then you can actually try to print them as well. So now you can say get method is not found, so this is called, and then you're gonna print that name. Okay, this is a standard syntax. You cannot just write whatever you want. This is a syntax that you have to follow. Okay, because these are magic methods, you don't call them, it gets called automatically. So let's see how they get called automatically. Let's say you have student. Okay, and you're trying to access a private property, right? ID is a private property and you cannot access them, right? And you're trying to set some value to it. Okay, you cannot do it because this is a private, right? You mentioned the access modifier is private, so it won't be able to store the value. Instead, it try to execute this. Okay, we're gonna see that because it cannot do it, then it goes and to the get and set methods, which are the methods which will help you to set that value. Okay, so let's do that. And you're trying to access even the ID. And when you execute the first step, it will go to the set method, and then second step it will go to the get method. Okay, so let's execute that. Okay, so let's execute the student.php. So you see set method is not found, so this method is called. Now you can see ID and test. So ID is basically the name and test is the value. Okay, so it's capturing what is the variable name and what is the value to it. So now you can write an if condition to say if $name equals to ID, then you can say okay, now they are trying to access ID, so now you can just assign that value to ID. Okay, so this is how the get and set method can be used. Okay, and you cannot anyway print this, right? You cannot print this value because it's a private property, so but still you can get it from the get method. Okay, but get is not returning anything, it's just printing the name. Okay, so let's look at again. For the get, the echo is called, and then the name of the variable is called. Okay, this is the name of the property ID. So you're saying that, okay, get me the ID. So you can do the same thing. You can now say echo of this value. Okay, so you're now trying to check, okay, he's trying to access the ID property, so let me print that property. Okay, so if you do that, then you can see the test here. Okay, so this is how you work through get and set methods, wherein they get executed automatically when you're trying to access a property that is hidden or the property that is not available. Okay, not available in the sense, if you're trying to access ID1, so you see, you don't get the test, but you can see that the ID1 gets executed, the get method get executed. So if you're trying to access something that is not available and not accessible, then get and set methods are called. If you're trying to set something that is not available or not accessible, set method is called. When you're trying to fetch something that is not available or not accessible, get method is called. Okay, something that is hidden, you cannot access it, then the get method and set methods are called. Okay, these are called as magic methods. It get called automatically, you don't have to worry about it, but it's a very good placeholder to control your errors. Let's say someone is trying to do some operation and you want to catch them. Someone is trying to access any of the private variables, you want to catch them and display some error message, or you want to just give them an error message saying that you don't have access to these private variables. Okay, or maybe you want to look at that variable and decide whether you want to take that data and assign it back to the variable. Okay, so that's a good placeholder for you to work with. These are called as magic methods, and these are always available for you to override in your class. Okay, so that's all in this lecture on set and get methods, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on call magic method. Let's understand what is the call magic method used for and how it get executed automatically. Okay, so for that we will create one more class. We call it as post.php. Okay, let's write that function _call. Okay, and it has two arguments. One is the name and one is the arguments. Okay, let's print them. Echo $name and then the arguments. Okay, so let's do that. Post1 is equal to new post. Okay, and let's try to call a method that is not available. So let's say you're calling a method create post. Okay, so when you try to execute a method that is not available, when you call a method that is unavailable or not defined in the post, then this call method get executed, and whatever the name of that method will be passed here, and whatever is the argument. So if you are passing an argument, this is a test. Okay, and that value will be passed in the argument. So this is a good magic method that help us to catch any methods that is someone is trying to call and that method is not available in the class. So you get the access, and then you can now intimate the user saying that, oh, this method is not available, or this method is a private, you cannot access it, or you can just try to catch those errors inside your class. Okay, and when this get executed, when someone makes a call to a method that is not available. Okay, so let's look at an example here. Okay, you can see create post and array. So this basically the argument is passed in this arguments and the name is here. So you can do a var dump for this. Okay, let's execute that. So you have an array and you have a string, and which is called as this is a string, right? And if you pass more values to it, you get the array more, and you can access it via the argument array. The call magic methods get executed when someone calls a method which is not available or undefined in the class. Well, this is a good placeholder to inform the users about the method's availability, or basically if it's accessible or not. Well, that's all the lecture on call magic methods, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on toString magic methods. So let's understand where and how this toString method is being used. Okay, so for that we'll create a teacher class. And we'll define that method. And you have to return something from the toString. So we say toString method is called. Remember, you have to return something. You cannot just exit out of it. This is the definition of a toString. You have to have a return type and then you have to return something. Okay, and mostly it is string. So once you have defined this, how does this magic methods get called? Let's understand that. So you have a teacher object, right? Let's echo the teacher name, and name is not defined, right? And then we'll try to print the teacher object. Okay, so let's see what happens if you're trying to access a property that's not available, or you're trying to print the object as well. Okay, so you can see the toString method is called once, not twice. So remember that when you're trying to access any of the properties, then get and set magic methods are called. When you're trying to print the object, you're trying to print the object itself, then the toString method is called. Okay, and this is a good placeholder. Typically how you're gonna use it, you can say public okay. I'll remove this, and someone want to print that object, so you can say echo the property value of name is this, okay. You can list out all the properties here and print it in nice format. When someone try to print the object, you are getting all the details of those properties. Okay, so you can see you can print the properties here, and there's a good placeholder to print what is inside this object. Okay, there's another way to do it. You can always do var dump of your object, and it will also tell you the same thing, whatever is available, what is the value and everything. But if you want to control this output, okay, var dump basically gives all the dump like an array. But if you want to control in a nice format, you want to print what is available, you want to hide the private, just show the public, then this toString function will help you. When you're trying, this gets executed when you're trying to print the object. When you're trying to print the object, the toString method is called. That's the benefit of having a toString magic methods in your code. Okay, it will help you to get the control and see which values you want to show to that user. Okay, so that's the purpose of having toString magic methods in your class, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on Debug Info. Let's see another magic methods called Debug Info, when and how it's been called. For this we'll create one more class called database class. Create a class called database. Let's define 3 variables of the database. We say db is equal to Oracle, and db name is students, table name is users. Okay, and let's say it has a method to print some value, and you are returning some value out of it. Okay, let's define our magic method, debug info, and we will echo some value here. You can say take the control to print the variables. Okay, so let's create our instance. So let's see how the debug info is called. Okay, before that I'm going to comment this out. Okay, let's understand how the var dump work. So if let's say you'd want to dump the db. Okay, so let's do a var dump of the db. Okay, so now the var dump is trying to print it, but you want to get control of var dump as well. If someone is doing a var dump, you want to take the control before it. Okay, you can use debug info to take the control. Okay, you got the control now. Okay, so let's understand what is the difference between debug info and toString. Okay, let's see whether the toString can get executed or not when you are doing a var dump. Okay, it doesn't get executed. So when the toString get executed, we have seen that previously when you do an echo of database, right? When you do an echo of database, you get control via the toString. When you do a var dump, you get the control via the debug info. That's the difference. Okay, and if you do it print, then you can find the difference. It is print or echo, all works on the toString. Okay, when you want to dump the object, that's when the debug info get executed and take the control. So that's all about how to work with debug info magic methods, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the exercise section. So let's do a quick exercise on what we have learned in the magic methods. So this exercise is very simple. You have to show all the magic methods in one class. Maybe you take a users class as an example, and users class, and then you try to define the set, get, construct, destruct, toString, debug info, and all those magic methods that you have just learned. Okay, try to show everything in one class and see if you can execute all those methods. Okay, that's the key. You need to know how to execute them. Okay, so let's do this exercise. Pause this video here and do this exercise now. So welcome back. So let's do this exercise. So for this, if you go to materials folder, magic methods, you can find this file. Let's open this file and then verify is how this exercise can be done. So you have a class user and you have a property username, and you have defined underscore set and underscore get, where you are assigning a value, setting the value, and then you're returning the value. Okay, then you have constructor and destructor as well, just printing the values and assigning, initializing the variables. Then you have toString to just return the username. Then you have debug info. Then you have call, which accepts name and arguments. Okay, okay, so let's call all these methods. Okay, first you create an instance, then you assign the username some value. That's the username. It's private, you cannot access, so the set method will be called. Then you're trying to print them, then the get method will be called. You're trying to print the object, then the toString method is called. You're trying to var dump, then user is called. Before that, we can even call a method and we can say hello, then the call method is called. Then finally the destructor method is called. Okay, so let's look at this example. Let's execute this and see how it behaves. Okay, so let's verify this. So you have your constructor called and you have your destructor called. Set and get method is invoked. Then you're printing something. toString method is invoked. then your debug info is invoked, and you also printing the hello and the array, which is the call method. Okay, so able to execute all the magic methods, most of the magic methods that's very commonly used inside your class. And these are very important concept to understand when you have some properties and you don't want to expose something, but you find people are trying to access it. You can actually give them a nice message to say this is set to something and you cannot have access to this. Okay, and there are ways to even control. If someone try to access a method, then you can even control it via the call. If someone is trying to print the object, instead of just printing the object, you can actually give them all the values that they are supposed to see it, all the public properties that they are supposed to see it. Okay, so this is a very important concept in OOPS, and it will help you to do a better coding, and it will also help to improve your coding style. That's all on the lecture on exercise on magic methods, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the summary section. So let's understand what you should able to do by now. You should able to understand what is magic methods. You should able to understand how this set, get, call, toString and debug info magic methods work and how you should use them in your class. And also I hope you have worked with exercises, resource and quiz to get more understanding of what is magic methods and how do you use them in your programming style. Well, that's all about magic methods in this section, and I'll see you in the next one.